Bless all the paths our feet walk to be free. Bless all the paths our feet walk to be free. Yeah.
So, breathing deeply again for myself into this talk about celebrating our authentic selves. There's a lot of definitions and things about what our authentic selves are. And in the metaphysical community, we have that airy-fairy version of being our authentic self and that true essence, which is still true. But if I may have the very next slide or page or... Yes, that is it. And the one after that. There we go. So, trying new things on the projector to see what's going to show up best. Can you click that light off and see if we have a... No, we don't. Okay. Well, I can't see anything. That's okay. Let my eyes adjust because I'm the one who wrote this, so I did it to myself.
Look at the screen.
Yeah, I'm going to need light. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, the definitions: authentic, genuine, literally self-authored or endorsed. Self, your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual being with all its human and unique characteristics. Authentic self, the true you, aligned and congruent self-image, stature, values, beliefs, goals, behavior, word, and public image. So when we talk about authentic self, we mean everything that is you, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that is contained within this person that you call self. So if I can have the very next. To thine own self be true. This is from Hamlet, if anybody of you are familiar with that. This is Polonius talking to his son Laertes. It starts off with neither a borrower nor a lender be, and don't forget, stay out of debt. And to thine own self be true. What is thine own self? There's many aspects to our authentic self. And how true are we to ourselves? And that's a lot of what this talk is about. It's that light within us that we all carry around with us every single day. And sometimes we're just afraid to show up. We're afraid to be that authentic self. We're afraid to just show up and be us. A lot of us have body issues. If I were to say to everybody right now, everybody's going to get naked, what, feel that in your body? Okay? And just breathe into that because it's our most natural state of being. And it's less shame about our nudity and more issues with our body than perhaps we have about just being naked. And that's the truest part of ourselves. These clothes that you see are man-made or human-made. None of that is the truest part of me. Like Becky said, I'm a very hairy Italian. And you don't need to see me naked to know that. But am I willing to show up regardless of what garments I put on covering that physical flesh? Am I willing to let myself be completely my authentic self? Can I have the very next page? And hopefully you'll be able to see these. Yeah, good. Get it right. I'm learning. So let's define these different things of authentic self. Self-image is how you see yourself. It's a self-image. So it's regardless of what other people talk about or see in you, this is about how you see yourself. Stature will be how you see your position in society. Doesn't mean necessarily that's what is. It means how you see yourself. Values, what you hold dear. It's kind of your rules of engagement also. Because my values and your values may be different. Values are kind of how we think humans ought to show up by virtue of our value system. Beliefs. Beliefs are what runs you. We've talked about beliefs before in many ways, shapes, and forms, and I'm sure we'll talk about beliefs more. But when you look about it, beliefs are what runs us. It's what keeps us in the morning. We get up, and from the moment we continue our day, everything that we do is revolved around our belief system. Goals. Goals are what you want. We're going to talk about changes next week, or next talk, because we're going to have Marianne here next week. So this is more about being your authentic self than the changes part of it. But the goals, if you think about it, is a change, because it's saying this is my current state of being, and a goal is something I want. That means I want my current state of being to be different later. And again, we'll talk about that next week. Behavior, how you act out your thoughts, your feelings, the notions, those values, those beliefs. That's what your behavior is. Word, what you speak of and how. Positive or negative. How you speak. We've done a couple different talks, Handbook to Higher Consciousness, Right Use of Will. We've done the 4 agreements, be impeccable with your word, the Cornucopia Center, which speaks of the creations of this life, how I speak of life, how I speak of myself. All of that is about my word. Public image. This is what you allow others to see. Again, may not be necessarily the truth of you or the authentic self in you, but this is what you allow other people to see. This is the projection that you give. And what I'm inviting us to do today is to really look into what we do in these, 7 words, and how we stop ourselves from being that authentic self and for letting that authentic self just shine out within us. Before I can completely be my authentic self, I have to own where I am. I have to own who I am. I have to own all these different aspects of me, and then I can celebrate it. Again, we'll talk about the changing part of it next week. But first, I want to own who I am to be able to celebrate it. So if I want to celebrate my hairiness, I just show up and be playful with it, and it is who I am. This lifetime, I came in a hairy body. Well, maybe not when I was born. Actually, I think I was a pretty hairy kid. So it's just owning it and celebrating whoever you are, whatever it is, whatever nuance that you have. It's being able to celebrate that self of you, that authentic part of you. Can I have the next page? Wherever you go, there you are. Who said that? Mel Gibson said it in Mad Max. That's the only person I've ever heard say it out loud. But a lot of people have said that. Wherever I go, there I am. So why don't we just celebrate that when we show up? Wherever you go, there you are. So once you get there, do you celebrate being you? And all the aspects of you, all the nuances, creating the life that you want is going to be a big factor in how you show up. And when I can celebrate who I am, regardless of who that is, all the different nuances, hairy or not, big Buddha belly or little Buddha belly, all the different nuances that are me, and be able and willing to show up with that and celebrate it. We talk about coming together here at the pod, and all the different communities that people come on Sundays or Saturdays, whatever day they choose to celebrate. And we've always talk about this as a celebration. So when we're coming together, wouldn't it be just logical then that we celebrate our individuality along the way? We're a group of people that have a wonderful time celebrating as a group, but it's the individuals within that group, when celebrating themselves, make the group even more awesome, because we're all celebrating the wonders of who we are. So celebrate yourself and let that part of you emerge. So if I can have the very next. The self that emerges through play is the core authentic self. Has anyone ever heard of that or heard of Stuart Brown? I haven't. I just saw that quote and I thought it was cool. Because this is about what we're talking about. It's about emerging. Margie and I did a workshop. The very first workshop I ever did in my life was called Emergence. And it's about letting it out. We do all this work. We do all these different workshops. We do all these different things. And sometimes we're working so hard and we don't have to. We're making it a lot harder on ourselves. Can I have the next page, please? This is basically what you look like. If you want to shut the light off for a second, I can. It's about letting your light emerge. Each and every one of us has a light within us. We have a wonderful light within us. We have a burning, radiant, glowing light that burns within us. If I can have the lights again. Kind of like this box is who we are. There's a light inside this box. You cannot see it right now because it's blocked. So many of us in our lives block our light from emerging because we refuse to show up. We refuse to show up as our authentic selves. We're still discovering along the way, or we may have shame that has bound us and blocked our own light. We may have thought or think that we're not good enough to show up. We're not good enough to be in the presence of these other light beings, and then we block and we block and we block more. Our human body has all this light within us. We know all these different things that we've learned cosmically. We learned all the different wonderful nuances about our chakras. But what if you never heard of New Age or anything like that? Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Many masters have talked about the light. We did all the different talks about the solstices and the summer solstice, spring solstice, the different equinoxes, how they're talking about the transcendence of light. And the lesson is for the human being, our transcendence of light. And when we truly let ourselves be our authentic selves, that is when our light shines out more. And we think it's all hard work to do. We think that, again, we have to go through all these workshops, we have to go through years and years of therapy, or I have to sit here and cry out every single thing that's ever happened to me in front of a group of people. And that's okay if you're wanting to do that, or if you happen to need some therapy or some tools that will help you. But sometimes it's not as hard as it looks. Can I have the very next page? If we practice being a good human being and forget about being a spiritual being, that is our essence. We already are it. There's nothing that you have to do to be a spiritual being. There's not one thing that you can do to be a spiritual being. You are it. You are a spiritual being. The light is within you. The light is all around you. You're walking as this planet as a spiritual being. But we block that light in our humanness. And these phrases right here, these sentences or half sentences, be kind all the time. Can you do that? This isn't about being spiritual, is it? This is about being a person. This is about being a human being. Be loving all the time. Be understanding all the time. Be forgiving all the time. Be truthful all the time. Sometimes that may mean that you're sad or hurt or angry and need to grieve. That's part of the being truthful part. That's about letting your authentic self completely show up. Be truthful. Be present all the time. The more we practice these simple things, and there's no big cosmic journey here. I didn't have to go to Tibet. I didn't have to meditate for 10 hours. I didn't have any singing bowls, anything to chant with, and all those things are wonderful. But this is something that each one of us can do every single day of our lives. And the more we allow ourselves to simply do this, the more that light's going to emerge. The more that we're going to be able to show up being our authentic self, because every time I'm kind, I'm letting that person inside me show up more and more and more. All the different nuances of who I am show up more and more and more. Every time I'm willing to be loving. This is about celebrating who we are all the time in the minute. There may be still healing to do, but the more you do this, the more it's going to assist in that healing. So say you did want to go to a workshop, and I've been kind and loving and forgiving, understanding, truthful, and present throughout my day. And then I go do this thing, a therapy, a one-on-one with someone, a big intensive weekend workshop, a self-help book, a card reading, a meditation, whatever it is. The more I've done these things throughout my daily life, throughout my week, throughout my days, throughout my month, the closer and closer I'm going to be to showing you who I am all the time. What if you're a grumpy butt? What if that's just who you are right now? Possibly you need to go back into whatever number it is, be truthful all the time, and admit to yourself that, again, there's some healing that needs to be done. But what if that's just who you are this lifetime? Just happen to be a grumpy butt. Like Oscar the Grouch on Sesame Street. But Oscar celebrates being Oscar, doesn't he? If you're familiar with Sesame Street and Oscar the Grouch. He has no problem being himself. He has no problem being that grumpy butt that he is. If that's what you are, then celebrate it. You know, as we look at the earth, the cosmos, us together, we've heard in many different ways, shapes, and forms that this is one organism and we're all part of the same organism. That's why our symbiotic relationship with the earth is important, because you are part of the earth. I'm not separate from it. I'm a cell in it. Well, what if I think I'm a defective cell? What if I think there's something wrong with me, and how am I supposed to aid the organism? In the mass wonder of this organism, there are defective cells. Perceptually, we see ourselves as defective sometimes, and sometimes there may be healing. But what if you showed up in a body, in a suit, that wasn't working all the way? What if something happened and you only had one leg left? God forbid an ailment like that or malady came to us. But what about our brothers and sisters that have been born, bless you, been born that way, and have to roll around in wheelchairs instead of being able to walk on our legs like we have? How do we know how they offer and what they serve the organism? In the Native American philosophy, that's called a giveaway. And in the spirit part of this, we all chose those things to play and to discover. But as we're coming and being part of this one cell, one organism, and we're this one cell, knowing that the more I show up, and if that's who I am this lifetime, celebrate that. I'm allowed to celebrate whomever I am. And when I'm bound with shame, or I'm bound with feeling defective, how willing do you think I'm going to be to want to celebrate that? And to celebrate that authentic self. So does that mean that every person who's sick in this world, or has some kind of physical handicap, mental handicap, health handicap, doesn't deserve to come out and shine their light and celebrate who they are? As part of that organism, we all have something to offer to the collective, even in our not so perfect state. How do we know that that doesn't actually add to the whole of the collective? So just breathe into that. It's about what is you. It's about celebrating the what is of you. And again, we'll talk about the changing parts next week or next talk. But this is more about you. Now, sometimes we identify with what we do for a living. And you could do that if you want, depending upon what you do for a living. Meaning, show up and be the wonderful self that you are all the time. If I was a garbage man, I would show up being a garbage man wonderfully. But I may not identify myself as a garbage man. Oh, Mark the garbage man. No, that happens to be what I'm doing for the moment to buy bread and food. But say you're doing something that is passionately part of yourself. If you're an activist, if you're a doctor that went and devoted their whole life and went to different countries to be a missionary, then perhaps that field of occupation is something that is very, very, very close to your authentic self, and you've married that within your being so much that you've identified yourself as that. Great. If that's what works for you, then celebrate that. But remember to celebrate the uniqueness of everybody. We'll leave here with a visual today of what happens when we celebrate our authentic selves, and how that light that was trapped in here, because you couldn't see it when it was blocked, but as each and every one of us were willing to and will celebrate ourselves, we're always going to be able to shine our light. Then nothing can hide if I show up. If I show up all the time, no matter what state I'm in. It's like, what movie was it? Hardball? Yep. Where Keanu Reeves was like a baseball coach to kids. And one of the things he said that he was really impressed about them was their ability to show up. And every single person in this room shows up differently because we all have the uniqueness. But when we show up, our light is the same. We're light. We're light beings. That's who we are. So can I have that very next slide? That's how you celebrate. Thank you, Homotaku Awesome.
Her job was no more than a cubicle, the opposite of beautiful. Her soul for a check, but her smile tells you that she found a deeper will she didn't know she had until the day that she left. And even though she's flying high, she can't help but wonder why took her half her lifetime just to find out she could let herself learn how to be real, to be radiant, to be elegant in her clumsy kind of way. Oh, here's to how it feels to be real. Her year has been all about the starting over, building up and letting go, and lots left to do. So some days she'll just toss aside the calendar, get lost in Mary Oliver, the whole afternoon writing poetry and blogs, riding in her car with dogs who stick their noses out the window all the way to town. Even they can show her how to be real, to be radiant, to be elegant in their clumsy kind of way. Oh, here's to how it feels to be real. Well, her life didn't quite turn out to look the same as all those Thomas Kincaid paintings that she adored. But her soul knows that any kind of deeper calling looks more like the pencil drawing stuck in her drawer when she opens up her heart. It is all her work of art, and all she has to do is let it out. That's exactly how to be real, to be radiant, even elegant in her clumsy kind of way. Oh, here's to how it feels to be real. Here's to how it feels to be real. Bless all